Live for all to see, demanding $5 billion in wall funding, saying he would own a shutdown if it came down to it.
I will take the mantle. I will be the one to shut it down. I'm not going to blame you for it.
Trump adding he would even go around Democrats if they don't deliver the votes to get there. Here to react, counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway. Merry Christmas, Kellyanne.
Merry Christmas, Jesse.
All right, so do you believe it's risky for the president to own the shutdown? I understand he thinks immigration is a good issue for him. Is it because he sees this as the last chance to get the wall funding until the House maybe flips in 2020?
This is way beyond immigration or even the wall. This is border security, and border security is national security. This president has made clear that his primary duty to all of us in this country, Jesse, is to keep us safe. And we see what happens when you have a porous border. You have poison like fentanyl and heroin and cocaine pouring over. You have people trying to come here illegally. You have people being promised by coyotes and others that they've paid thousands of dollars to, maybe more, promises that cannot be delivered upon. And look what's happened to many of those folks trying to come here. And this is a president who knows that we as a nation have been spending billions of dollars over decades helping other nations protect their own sovereign borders. It's high time we do it here.
That's a great point.
He also knows that there were 26 Democrats in the Senate who voted for the Secure Fences Act in 2006. And they were none other, let me just highlight a few for you, Senator Joe Biden, Senator Barack Obama, Senator Chuck Schumer, and Senator ding, 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 Hillary Clinton. So what's happened on the border since the 2006 Secure Fences Act was voted on? It got worse. It's more porous. We're
well, it's
more
actually, it's
endangered.
interesting. Since they started building any sort of fencing, wherever they built it, immigration through that area halted, it funnels the foot traffic of the illegals to softer points. So wherever the walls are, the walls work. Let me show you some sound of how the people in the media are framing the border security issue. So the media is racializing border security.
Always.
And if you look at all of the polls, a majority of Americans, they want border security. They're against sanctuary cities. They're anti-caravan. But then when you hear people say, oh, you want border security, you must be racist. Do you think that's backfiring on the left?
It does backfire because people are very focused on what the issue at hand here truly is. And it's whether or not you want a Customs and Border Patrol. There's brave men and women at the border who say they need enhancements, they need better security, they need electronic enhancements, they need fences, they need walls, whether they're concrete or not. They need border security. They're telling us they're not cosseted on some and protected on some fancy TV set in Washington or New York, pontificating. They are actually doing the job to keep us all safe at the border.
This is a pretty nice set, I have to admit.
There you go. Well, I wasn't talking about you, but yes, it is. And by the way, this is a pretty nice perch, too. Well, I read it. But CPB, ICE, all those dum-dums who want to abolish ICE. Do you know what ICE did just last year? They surveilled enough fentanyl to have killed every man, woman, and child in this country. They're stopping the human smugglers, the child smugglers, the drug smugglers, and folks who are coming over here with criminal records. Now, the mainstream media want us all to believe, Jesse, that the president thinks everybody who wants to come here is a bad person. No, he doesn't. In fact, the president says constantly he wants people to come here, but come here legally. Add to the list of the 33 million people who have come to this country, immigrated here legally over the years because we're so generous and welcoming. But if anyone is smuggling a child, if anyone is smuggling drugs, if people are coming here for nefarious reasons, if they're MS-13 gang members, you know that number's not zero, not even close to zero. So people ought to get off their high horses and focus on what this is, border security as national security.
Right. All right, I want to switch gears to Nancy Pelosi. I guess your new compadre over there, you're going to have to be dealing with her quite a lot in the next 2 years, at the most, I would say. This is what she did the other day. She actually scolded the media. Listen to this scolding.
I wish that the press would spend a lot more time on what we need to do here to meet the needs of the American people instead of morning, noon, and night allegations against the president. I think you'd have more viewers or readers if it would address concerns that people have rather than just this ongoing coverage of what's current with the president from one day to the next.
That is remarkable.
Is Nancy stealing your job, Kellyanne? I mean, she sounds exactly like a Republican.
She does, and indeed she sounds like me, who's always talking about not biased coverage, because that's easy to see,
right,
where you want to see it, but incomplete coverage. We're not having policy discussions. I tried to have some this week on a competitor network, doesn't do as well as your network, because I like to get the president's message out to different audiences, and just get shut down and constantly interrupted when I try to talk about policy. It's that you're deflecting, diverting, pivoting. No. I actually want people to have news they can use. Let's make sure our veterans know what's available to them. Let's make sure workforce development measures and all these opportunities people have to get one of those 7 million Trump-created jobs, that they know about it, that they understand what it means to be one of the 30 million Americans that still doesn't have health insurance 8.5 years after Obamacare was passed. We want people to have news they can use,
right,
not everybody's opinion, which of course is not news. But when Pelosi says that, she sounds a lot like Jesse. Also, those Democrats are saying, no, we're not talking about indictment, impeachment. No. We're going to work on infrastructure. Okay, I'm going to hold them to it. Impeachment? No. Out. Infrastructure in. Great. Let's work. We have a builder here in the White House. Let's work on a big project.
Let's work together.
Let's do it together. Let's create those jobs and build stuff and repair the dams and the bridges and the water mains that break and everything else.
Yeah, water mains breaking all over New York City, but I blame Bill de Blasio for that.
Why not?
Someone else that's been making a lot of sense on the left. I mean, I can't even believe it. Something's happening here. Claire McCaskill had a little advice for the Democratic Party. Sounds similar. So Claire's saying, Democrats, stop playing the gender card. Kellyanne, 30 seconds, all yours.
They usually only discover this, Jesse, after they lose.
Right. I'm sure
but
it's a
part
coincidence.
of why she lost, because she's running for re-election in Missouri, but amidst a Democratic Party that's veering so far to the left, they can't even reach the middle if they stretch their arms out. Also, I'll remind you that Senator McCaskill told your colleague Bret Baier in an interview on Fox News on October 29th, she thought the president should use every tool at his disposal to try to secure that border. She was 100% with him. She backs him up. That was to try to mollify many of those Trump voters in her state, a state he carried by 19 points, and she just lost. But she lost not just because she's wrong on the issues, but because people look up and they see Democrat now, and they know that you're for socialized medicine. And she, of course, voted against Brett Kavanaugh and lost her seat also. But also she said, look, the president tapped into the frustration and anger of many voters who feel like their work is not being dignified. In her state of Missouri, manufacturers, if there are miners, construction, those jobs are way up, as is the confidence levels.
All right, Kellyanne, Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Jesse. Merry Christmas. God bless.
Have a good one.
Take care. Well, look, border security is national security. The president's first and primary duty is to keep the American citizenry safe, and he's trying to do that here. I like what Kevin reminded us, your colleague Kevin Quirk, that in 2006 we had something called the Secure Fences Act. Let me go through some of the 26 Democratic senators who voted for that 12 short years ago. Senator Chuck Schumer, Senator Hillary Clinton, Senator Joe Biden, Senator Barack Obama. When politics weren't involved and national security and border security were on their minds, they did the right thing, and we hope they'll do the right thing here. The Democrats have a central question in front of them, Bill. Do they want to keep the government open, or do they want to keep the borders open?
Funding for the wall is at stake. You've got $5 billion in a House bill. You got about $1.6 billion in a Senate bill. I think Nancy Pelosi referred to $1.3 billion earlier this week. I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know where they're going. But what gives on this today?
Look, the House bill with the $5 billion is more in line with what the president has asked for. And it's not just a wall. It's not just a physical wall. It is the wall plus. And the president's 3 tweets this morning reflected that. He said an awful lot in those 3 tweets, and people should read them again, because he said that walls work. We know in El Paso, El Centro, Yuma, for example, San Diego, certainly, when walls were built, you did see a decrease in the number of illegal aliens coming over across those walls. The president has also made a legacy issue and a huge priority of his administration, Bill, stopping the flow of drugs over our southern border. It is literally poisoning and killing 72,000 Americans a year, and so much of that flows through the southern border. So it's not just about the people, it's about the poison coming into our communities. Under this president's leadership, the apprehensions of gang members, the seizures of fentanyl and other deadly drugs are way up. And so his methods are working. The money is important, but it's also beyond symbolism here. We saw what happened with the migrant caravan. So many of the predictions and the hysteria coming from the mainstream media and people in that Democratic Party were completely false. I feel very badly for so many of those migrants who were promised things that could not be delivered to them. They were lied to by people who probably took their money and imperiled their safety and security. But this president is willing to work across the aisle with Leader Schumer and with We guess Speaker Pelosi, but she's also got a critical decision to make. She does not have the votes necessarily for Speaker. It's been really tough for her to get them. So what has she promised some of these outrageously socialist-leaning Democrats in her caucus to become Speaker? It's a good question, but walls work. It's walls plus. And it's also border security, national security, central question. The president wants to close the borders and keep the government open.
Okay.
The question for the Democrats are, do they agree?
When someone wants money, you say, what's it for? Well, right now, we don't know exactly what that $5 billion buys. Currently, the border has about 650 miles of barrier. About half of that only stops cars, and some of the rest barely stops people. So you see the vehicle barrier there, and the old stuff, well, it's old and rusty and pretty short. Well, Homeland Security says $5 billion will build 215 miles of wall, likely bollard-style fence, 5 miles San Diego, 14 in El Centro, 27 in Yuma, 9 in El Paso, 55 Laredo, 104 miles in the Rio Grande Valley. But does it replace old fence? Is it a secondary fence, or is it new fence, meaning additional miles? We don't know. How much is spent on cameras, sensors, and drones? ICE, Border Patrol agents don't know. We asked the White House. Congress got nothing even this morning. So is this fight about money or politics? We'll consider this year Congress will spend $5 billion in aid to Afghanistan, $11 billion on green energy subsidies, $14 billion on earmarks. Democrats say they oppose a wall, yet from President Clinton through Barack Obama, congressional Democrats voted for, approved, and built miles of border wall. And remember, Bill, in 2006, a majority of Senate Democrats voted for 700 miles of double fencing, no different in design to what President Trump today calls a wall.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.